Since the dawn of consciousness, humanity has looked to the stars and into the depths of our own hearts, asking the same profound question, where did we come from? Every culture has its own sacred creation myth, a story to anchor us in time. But what if I told you that one of the world's greatest spiritual teachers, the Buddha, suggested that this might be the wrong question to ask? He taught that obsessing over a cosmic beginning while we are suffering in the present is like a man who has been shot by a poisoned arrow, but who refuses life-saving treatment until he knows the full name and village of the archer who shot him. The urgent task, the Buddha insisted, is not to endlessly speculate about the distant past, but to heal the suffering of the present moment. And yet, in his profound wisdom, the Buddha did offer a kind of origin story, not of a single, linear creation, but of endless cosmic cycles, of luminous, godlike beings who tasted the earth and gradually became human, of a universe that breathes in and out over unimaginable eons. This is not a story about when we began, but the deep, diagnostic map of how we are, and understanding it holds the key to our liberation. Let's explore this extraordinary vision together. For centuries, humanity has pondered the most profound questions of our existence. Where do we come from? What is our purpose? And where are we going? Religions, philosophies, and modern scientific theories have all offered varied and compelling answers to these questions, each reflecting their own unique frameworks for understanding reality. In Buddhism, however, the approach to understanding human origins differs significantly. The Buddha did not focus on speculative, metaphysical theories about a singular beginning. Instead, he consistently emphasized a practical, experiential wisdom aimed squarely at alleviating suffering and achieving ultimate liberation. Central to Buddhist thought is the idea that ultimate origins, whether of the universe or of human life, cannot be fully grasped through intellectual speculation alone. In the Ajivakagata Sutta, a famous discourse, the Buddha explicitly avoided being drawn into metaphysical debates about whether the universe had a beginning or an end. He, as we mentioned, likened such discussions to the foolishness of a man struck by a poisoned arrow who refuses treatment. The Buddha's entire teaching prioritizes direct, transformative understanding over mere intellectual curiosity. This pragmatic perspective deeply shapes how Buddhism addresses the question of human origins. Rather than focusing on a linear, historical starting point, Buddhism introduces a vast, cyclical view of time and existence. The universe, and all beings within it, are seen to arise and dissolve in an endless, rhythmic pattern of creation, sustenance, and eventual destruction. This cyclical perspective reflects not only the nature of the cosmos, but also the intimate process of rebirth, where each individual stream of consciousness takes on new forms, life after life, shaped by the inescapable law of karma. Thus, to understand human origins in the Buddhist sense requires us to explore profound concepts such as beginningless time, the intricate interplay between consciousness and physical form, and the almost incomprehensible vastness of cosmic processes. These ideas offer insights that go far beyond a simple historical or biological narrative, linking our fleeting human existence to the infinite, rhythmic cycles of the cosmos itself. Chapter 1: The Universe According to Buddhism, Beginningless Time. In Buddhist cosmology, time is portrayed not as a straight line with a clear beginning and end, but as a beginningless and infinite cycle. The Anamataga Sutta introduces this staggering concept of boundless cycles of rebirth, or samsara, emphasizing that no discernible starting point can ever be found. The Buddha taught this cycle of rebirth, monks, has no discernible beginning, a first point of beings wandering and transmigrating, cloaked in ignorance and bound by craving, is not known. This view contrasts sharply with the linear notions of time that are foundational to many other world traditions. To illustrate the profound vastness of these time periods, which he called kalpas, the Buddha used a powerful and mind-bending metaphor. He said, "Imagine a mountain of solid rock, 1 yojana, roughly 7 miles, high and wide, without any cracks or crevices. If a man were to come once every 100 years and brush this massive mountain with a fine, soft piece of silk cloth, the time it would take to completely wear the mountain down to the ground would still be shorter than a single kalpa." Try to hold this image in your mind, the slow, patient caress of silk against stone, the eons passing like single heartbeats. This imagery is designed to convey the almost unimaginable vastness of time, urging practitioners to see beyond the short-term concerns and to recognize the profound impermanence inherent in all of existence. Cycles of universal evolution. Buddhism also offers a detailed account of cosmic processes. The Agarna Sutta, a key text, describes a universe that undergoes these endless cycles of expansion and contraction. Like a great cosmic breath, during vast periods of contraction, the physical world dissolves back into elemental energy, and beings are mostly reborn in subtler, luminous realms, such as the Abhisara Brahma world. In these realms, they exist as self-luminous, mind-made beings, free from the constraints of gross physical matter. Eventually, after an immeasurable period, the universe begins to expand again. The physical world re-emerges from a state of pure energy. The Buddha explained, there comes a time, Vasita, when, sooner or later after a long period, this world contracts. There comes a time when this world expands. As the world expands, beings from the Abhisara Brahma world, their lifespan exhausted, pass away from there and are reborn here. This cyclical pattern highlights the deep interconnectedness of all phenomena, from the grand formation of galaxies to the subtle birth of sentient beings. The forces that drive these immense cycles are described as elemental and causal. Rather than theistic, Buddhism attributes the universe's formation to the dynamic interaction of natural elements, earth, water, fire, air, and space, all governed by the collective force of karma. As these elements coalesce and stabilize, the physical world takes shape, providing a realm, a stage, for beings to experience the fruits of their past actions. The vastness of multiple world systems, in addition to its cyclical nature, The Buddhist universe is unimaginably vast, teeming with life, long before our modern telescopes peered into the deep field. The Buddha described countless world systems, each with its own planets, suns, moons, and cycles of birth and dissolution. Modern cosmology's growing understanding of galaxies and the theoretical possibility of multiverses curiously mirrors this ancient teaching. Though Buddhism always emphasizes their ultimate impermanence and interconnectedness, the Brahmajala Sutta outlines this multiverse concept, describing thousand-fold world systems beyond our own, extending endlessly in all directions. Each of these systems is subject to the same universal laws of impermanence, arising and ceasing through a complex web of karmic causes. This perspective fundamentally challenges the idea of a singular, unique creation and underscores the infinite complexity of existence. In this vast, breathing, cyclical universe, human life is not a random accident, but a precious and deeply interconnected part of the cosmos. The Buddhist understanding of our origins thus provides not only a cosmological framework, but also a profound ethical lesson. Our actions, our very thoughts, ripple through these infinite cycles, shaping not only our own lives, but the broader universe as well. Chapter 2, The Evolution of Human Form. In the Agana Sutta, the Buddha provides a striking, almost mythological account of how beings first came to exist in this particular physical world. At the beginning of this great evolutionary process, beings were described as radiant, mind-made, and self-luminous. They were beings of pure light, their bodies woven from mind stuff, their sustenance not from grain, but from the very feeling of joy, piti. During this primordial time, the physical environment was vastly different from what we know today. The Buddha said, at that period, Vasita, there was just one mass of water, and all was darkness. The beings were made of mind, fed on joy, self-luminous, and they traversed the sky. These self-luminous beings were free from the physical limitations and the gross forms of suffering that characterize human existence today. They moved effortlessly through a vast, primordial landscape of twilight and water, untouched by the coarseness of matter, without weight and without want. However, as the measurable time passed, subtle changes in their environment and, more importantly, in their own actions, led to a gradual and fateful transformation. Physical transformation, the transition from mind-made beings to physical forms, began with the appearance of a delectable, edible substance that the Sutta calls earthly essence. The Buddha described it as a rich, fragrant, honey-like layer that formed on the surface of the primordial waters. Drawn by a flicker of curiosity and a nascent craving, one of the luminous beings began to taste this essence. Seeing this, others followed. This was a pivotal, almost tragic moment in our cosmic story. Over time, their growing dependence on this physical food caused their radiant, self-luminous bodies to gradually lose their light. With this loss of luminosity, physical distinctions between beings became apparent for the first time. The Buddha remarked, some beings began to notice differences in their forms. Some were beautiful, some were not, and conceit arose in their minds. As their physical forms continued to solidify, features like hands, feet, and faces developed, marking the beginning of bodily diversity. Gender distinctions also emerged during this transformation. Initially, the beings were androgynous, but as their physical forms evolved, male and female characteristics became pronounced. This change, which the Buddha attributed to karmic causes, marked the beginning of sexual reproduction and a deeper entanglement in the world of sensory desire. With these transformations, beings became increasingly rooted in the physical world, and the potential for attachment, conflict, and suffering grew exponentially. Environmental changes. The physical world also underwent significant changes during this period. As the earthly essence was consumed and diminished, new forms of vegetation appeared, including edible creepers and, eventually, a kind of self-husking grain. The beings adapted their diet, but this continued shift toward gross physical food led to a further coarsening of their forms and minds. The Buddha noted how greed and attachment arose as beings, for the first time, began to hoard resources for themselves, disrupting the natural harmony of their existence. As the Earth's surface solidified, the environment became more hospitable for these new physical forms. However, with these changes came new challenges. The natural abundance that once provided effortlessly for all beings began to diminish, compelling them to work, to organize, and to manage resources in order to survive. This marked the beginning of humanity's deep and complex relationship with the environment, one characterized by both dependence and, eventually, exploitation. The evolution of the human form in the Buddhist narrative is not merely a biological process, it is a profound karmic and ethical one. The transformations were driven by choices, by desires, and by actions that reflect the broader principle of dependent origination. Chapter 3: The Development of Human Society. As human forms became more distinct and the environment more demanding, beings began to gather in groups for mutual benefit and protection. This marked the start of early human communities. The Buddha described how beings who once existed in a state of isolated, joyful bliss began to organize themselves to share resources, protect one another, and develop basic social structures. Language emerged as a natural consequence of living in these groups. Initially, communication was intuitive and nonverbal, but over time, beings developed specific sounds and symbols to express their more complex ideas and needs. The Buddha noted, then those beings began to eat solid food, and their bodies became coarser. This coarsening extended to their minds as well, as ignorance, avidya, and craving, tanha, introduced new and painful conflicts into their interactions. With the loss of natural abundance, beings had to work collaboratively to cultivate food and manage resources. This cooperation, born of necessity, laid the groundwork for organized society, including the division of labor and the emergence of specific roles within communities. The rise of social structures. As resources became more limited, a new and consequential concept arose: personal ownership. Beings began to claim portions of land, food, and other resources as their own. The most fateful word in human history was spoken, mine. This inevitably led to disputes, theft, and conflict, prompting the need for governance and rules. The Agarna Sutta describes how the beings collectively chose a leader, a person of great virtue, to be their king, referred to as the Mahasamarta, the Great Elect. His role was to maintain order, protect property, and resolve conflicts. This marked the beginning of governance and the rule of law. The Buddha explained how these developments were not inherently virtuous or corrupt, but arose naturally from the changing conditions of existence. Over time, social roles such as farmers, artisans, and merchants emerged to address the growing needs of these burgeoning communities. The division of labor allowed societies to flourish, but it also introduced the complexities of social hierarchies and inequality. Moral evolution. The Buddha emphasized that alongside this material and social evolution, there was a parallel and equally important development of morality and spiritual seeking. As beings experienced the painful consequences of their own greed, anger, and delusion, they began to recognize the profound importance of ethical behavior. The memory of that original, luminous state, though long forgotten, perhaps echoed in the hearts of a few, who began to seek a way back from the growing darkness. Stories of spiritual teachers and dedicated seekers appear throughout the Buddhist texts as examples of this moral awakening. The emergence of teachings on generosity, dana, compassion, karuna, and mindfulness, sati, reflect humanity's innate and noble effort to counterbalance the challenges of material existence and find a path back to true happiness. So we have journeyed from the great, breathing cycles of the cosmos to the first fateful taste of earthly craving, and from the dawn of community to the rise of the very social structures we still inhabit today. This grand, sweeping narrative is not just a myth of the distant past. It is a profound diagnostic map of our present human condition. It shows us how humanity became entangled in the complex web of suffering. But to find the path to freedom, we must look even closer. We must understand the intricate, moment-to-moment mechanism that keeps this cycle of suffering turning within each of us. That mechanism is the universal law of karma, and exploring its profound and personal implications is precisely where our journey continues. We have journeyed from the great, breathing cycles of the cosmos down to the very formation of human society, a grand, sweeping process driven by the universal law of karma. But this cosmic story is not one of inescapable destiny, for alongside our social and physical evolution, the Buddha taught of another, far more important development: the evolution of morality and the dawning of the precious potential for liberation. The Buddha taught that this moral evolution, this awakening of the heart, is essential for any true progress toward freedom. He also wisely warned against becoming overly attached to the external structures of society or to mere material advancements. True progress, he explained with profound clarity, lies in cultivating wisdom, or panna, and in diligently practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, the practical roadmap that leads beyond the endless, wearying cycles of rebirth to a state of ultimate, unshakable freedom. The development of human society in the Buddhist view is thus a dynamic reflection of both our karmic inheritance and our present ethical choices. It shows how we, as human beings, through both collaboration and conflict, create the very conditions for our own suffering and, most importantly, for our own liberation. Chapter 4. Scientific Parallels in Buddhist Cosmology. While the Buddha's teachings are a path to spiritual liberation, not a scientific textbook, it is fascinating to note the remarkable resonances between ancient Buddhist cosmology and the discoveries of modern science. These parallels do not prove the Buddhist view, but they do highlight a shared human quest to understand the universe's vast, impersonal, and interconnected nature. Universal cycles. Buddhist cosmology describes the universe as undergoing endless, rhythmic cycles of expansion and contraction, a process that mirrors, in a philosophical sense, modern scientific theories such as the Big Bang and the speculative Big Crunch. In the Agana Sutta, the Buddha spoke of these cosmic cycles where entire world systems arise, evolve over unimaginable eons, and eventually dissolve back into a state of pure energy. He explained, there comes a time when the world contracts. There comes a time when the world expands. This cyclical understanding is fundamentally different from a linear creation story with a single, definitive beginning. The Buddha emphasized that no ultimate, absolute beginning or end can be found, only an ongoing, ceaseless process of arising and ceasing, governed by natural laws and the all-pervasive influence of karma. Modern astrophysics proposes that our current universe began with a singularity, expanded rapidly through the Big Bang, and may either continue expanding indefinitely or eventually collapse back in on itself. While these theories are grounded in rigorous empirical observation and mathematics, their conceptual similarities to the ancient Buddhist cosmology are striking. They both point toward a universe that is profoundly impermanent, dynamic, and interconnected. Multiple world systems. Buddhism's vision of the cosmos includes not just one universe, but countless world systems, all lokadartas, each undergoing its own immense cycles of creation and dissolution. In the Brahmajala Sutta, the Buddha spoke of innumerable universes beyond our own, each with its own unique realms of existence. These realms include celestial heavens, human worlds, and lower states of suffering, all interconnected through the inescapable law of dependent origination. Today, some of our most advanced theoretical physicists explore the concept of a multiverse, which posits that multiple universes may coexist, each potentially with its own distinct physical laws and properties. This ancient Buddhist description resonates deeply with this modern, mind-bending idea. Again, while Buddhism does not focus on scientifically validating these ideas, its teachings serve to emphasize the impermanence and profound interdependence of all phenomena. Regardless of their scale, this perspective is designed to shatter our self-centered view, reminding us that our world is but one small, temporary island in an infinite cosmic ocean. The evolutionary process, the gradual development of life, is another area where Buddhist cosmology aligns with the broad strokes of modern evolutionary science. In the Agana Sutta, The Buddha described beings who were initially mind-made and luminous, and who then gradually adapted to changing environmental conditions, eventually developing the gross physical forms we see today. This narrative of a gradual progression from simpler to more complex forms mirrors evolutionary biology's account of how life forms evolve over vast stretches of time in response to their environment. Buddhism, however, adds a crucial and deeper layer to this process by directly connecting physical evolution with the evolution of consciousness. The Buddha taught that consciousness, or Vijnana, plays a central and active role in shaping life forms. Karma, the intentional actions of beings, affects not only their individual destinies, but also the broader conditions of their environment and their physical embodiment. This profound interplay between mind and matter underscores the Buddhist view that existence is a dynamic, participatory, and interconnected process. Consciousness is not just a passive byproduct of physical processes, it is an active force in shaping existence itself. Chapter 5: Human Existence in the Buddhist Context. After exploring the vastness of the cosmos, the Buddhist teachings bring us back to our own existence, framing it as something incredibly rare and precious. The unique position of humans in the vast hierarchy of possible rebirths. Human existence is seen as both exceptionally rare and uniquely fortunate. The Chigala Sutta uses a vivid and startling metaphor to describe this rarity. I want you to try and truly imagine this. Imagine the single, blind sea turtle swimming in the immensity of the world's oceans, and imagine a single wooden yoke with a small hole in it, tossed about by the winds and currents on the surface of those same oceans. The Buddha said that the chance of that blind turtle surfacing for air only once every 100 years, happening to place its head directly through that single, floating yoke is still greater than the chance of attaining this precious human birth. This rarity is what makes human life so uniquely significant, unlike beings in the higher heavenly realms, who are often distracted by immense and long-lasting pleasures, or those in the lower realms, who are completely overwhelmed by intense suffering. Humans exist in a perfect middle ground. We have just enough suffering to motivate us to seek a way out, and just enough freedom and intelligence to be able to understand and practice the path to liberation. The Buddha emphasized this point. Hard is it to be born a human. Hard is it to live a life of virtue. With this human birth comes the golden opportunity to hear the Dharma, to practice the Noble Eightfold Path, and to work directly toward freedom. The purpose of understanding our origins. The Buddha did not delve into these speculative questions about the universe or humanity's beginnings simply to satisfy intellectual curiosity. Instead, he taught that understanding our origins should serve a deeply practical and spiritual purpose, to reduce our suffering and to foster our progress toward liberation. In the Ajivakagata Sutta, he explained that focusing on irrelevant, unanswerable questions is a distraction from the urgent work of pulling the poisoned arrow of suffering from our own hearts. Understanding our origins in the Buddhist context reminds us of the profound impermanence and interdependence of all things. This direct awareness can help us to gently let go of our attachments. to develop a boundless compassion for all beings who are wandering in this same cosmic cycle, and to live a life of deep ethical integrity by seeing how our actions ripple across time and space. We can begin to align our lives with the universal principles that lead to lasting peace and wisdom. The relationship between origin and destiny. For Buddhists, the origin of human life is inseparable from its ultimate purpose. Our present existence is conditioned by our past actions, but it also holds within it the incredible potential to shape our future outcomes. The Buddha taught that while we are bound by the laws of karma, we also have the radical power to transform our own destinies through mindful action and ethical living in this very moment. This empowering teaching is beautifully encapsulated in the Dhammapada, where the Buddha states, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought." If a man speaks or acts with an impure mind, suffering follows him, as the wheel follows the ox that draws the cart. If a man speaks or acts with a pure mind, happiness follows him, like a shadow that never leaves. Recognizing this intimate connection between our origin and our destiny empowers us to take full and complete responsibility for our actions. It also provides a broader, more compassionate perspective on life's challenges, allowing us to view them not as random, meaningless events, but as precious opportunities for our own growth and understanding. Practical application in daily life. Ultimately, the Buddhist teachings on human origins are not merely theoretical or abstract. They offer immensely valuable insights for our everyday living. By understanding the deep interconnectedness of all phenomena, we can cultivate a more consistent mindfulness and a more natural compassion, recognizing how our smallest actions affect not only ourselves but everyone around us. This awareness can also inspire a profound sense of gratitude for the rare and precious opportunity of this human life. Instead of taking our existence for granted, we can choose to use it as a platform for developing wisdom, practicing generosity, and pursuing the path to liberation. The Buddha's teachings constantly remind us that while our life is impermanent, its fleeting nature is precisely what makes it so incredibly meaningful. So we have journeyed from the great, breathing cycles of the cosmos to the first fateful taste of earthly craving, and from the dawn of community to the rise of the very social structures we still inhabit today. This grand, sweeping narrative is not just a myth of the distant past. It is a profound diagnostic map of our present human condition. It shows us how humanity became entangled in the complex web of suffering. But to find the path to freedom, we must look even closer. We must understand the intricate, moment-to-moment mechanism that keeps this cycle of suffering turning within each of us. That mechanism is the universal law of karma, and exploring its profound and personal implications is precisely where our journey continues.